Hi all, and welcome to today's webinar with Great Place to Work and feature Best Workplace OneLogin. So today we will be talking about how culture can actually be a really impactful way to drive business results in your small or medium business. And we have a lot of ground to cover, so I'm going to move quickly through the intro and get you guys to the real meat of the presentation today. So first off, just a really quick introduction into Great Place to Work for those of you who are new to us. So we've been around for about 30 years now, and we're really the industry experts on high trust culture in the workplace. So what we've done over the past few decades is work with top companies from around the world to help them identify, recognize, and really build better workplace cultures that specifically drive business results. So our work takes the form of a few different services that we provide, including consulting, our many best workplaces list, which we publish with Fortune, including the best small and medium workplaces list. And lastly, with our certification program, which you all will hear more about at the end of our talk. So also a little bit about who's speaking today. So my name is Teresa Iafola. I'm your host and facilitator today, and I'm a content manager for Great Place to Work. But of course, you all are here to listen to our speakers, Ashley and Mai talk. So I'm going to let them quickly introduce themselves, and I'll start with Ashley.
Thanks, Teresa, and hello, everybody. My name is Ashley Chavez, and I'm responsible for the Great Place to Work certification marketing and customer experience. Prior to joining Great Place to Work, I was the head of marketing for a startup where I actually joined as employee number 8. I've really got an entrepreneurial spirit at heart, and I'm very passionate about all things startup and small businesses. And I'm super excited to be here today, so thank you.
Thanks, Ashley. Mai?
Hello, everybody. My name is Mai Ton. I'm the VP of HR at OneLogin. I'm super excited to join Ashley and Teresa today. I started my career 15 years ago in HR, and I fell into it, and I thrive in technology companies where things need to be built. And so I'm happy to share my own journey and sort of let you hear about some of the lessons that I've gone through so that you don't have to go through them yourself.
Great. All right. So we have a lot on the docket today. Quick preview of what we'll be talking about. So we're going to start off with why culture matters for small and medium businesses, and Ashley will be leading that section. Then we'll go straight into my section on OneLogin story and their sort of culture journey and the results that OneLogin has seen. And we'll pause there for a few minutes and do a quick Q&A with Mai. So if you guys have questions for Mai that you'd like us to ask her and have her answer, feel free to just add those in the chat box to your right, and we'll try and get to those. And then for those of you who are really interested on starting on your own culture journey and getting started with Great Place to Work certification, we'll have that section at the end and also have time for questions there as well. All right. And then lastly, I think I already mentioned this, but just put in your questions there. We'll try and get those answered. As well as for certification, we'll have a short Q&A at the end, specifically about certification. And I will also mention that we will be recording this webinar and providing the slide deck and the recording out to you all a few days after the webinar. So if you need to hop off or you can't make the whole talk, no worries. We'll have that out to you right after. All right. So with that, I will pass the mic over to Ashley and let her get started with her talk.
All right, thanks, Teresa. Let's just make sure I have access to the deck here.
There you go. There is a slight delay, so just bear with us, everyone, as we're transitioning between speakers.
All right. So I am especially excited about joining today to discuss this topic because it's really so near and dear to my heart. Like many of us on this call today, I've spent most of my career in startup environments, and in fact, I was actually born and raised in the small business environment. So my family owned several restaurants in my hometown of Bakersfield, California, while I was growing up. And I was very heavily involved in the day-to-day operations from a young age. The restaurant really operated more like a family. The employees cared for each other. We supported each other through monumental moments in our lives, and we created lifelong bonds that I still cherish to this day. So, but really beyond that emotional impact that the business had on my life, studies also show that small businesses are really crucial to our economy. And I think you all know this. In fact, small businesses have provided 55% of all jobs and 66% of net new jobs since 1970. And the small business community is continuing to see incredible growth. Even as larger companies have eliminated almost 4 million jobs, small businesses have really stepped up and made up for it by adding 8 million to our economy. And at Great Place to Work, we really recognize that the future is in small businesses. So as a result, we're very passionate about supporting SMBs and fostering a community of growth. It's part of our offering and focusing on really offering accessible and affordable solutions that help all businesses grow, especially small ones. So, through our experience in working in small businesses and the research that we've done, we understand the complexities of working in very resource-constrained and startup environments and startup settings, and have seen firsthand really what it takes to be successful in this highly competitive environment. So, while each business has its own complexities, we've seen many commonalities amongst small and or young businesses. First and foremost, oftentimes they're filled with very passionate and hardworking staff that wear multiple hats. To stay competitive, there's a need for agility and innovation. In startup companies, this is often the primary reason that the company is in business in the first place. They're solving a challenge that their larger, slower competitors cannot. There's often also budget and cash flow. It's always issues, and it's always a challenge. I mean, there's an abundance of things to do and limited time and resources to do so. Small businesses are often poised for quick growth, without the complexity and bureaucracy of processes. They're able to begin seeing results in a fraction of the time of some of their larger competitors. But however, without large budgets, SMBs initially really struggle with brand recognition and are challenged with coming up with creative ways to compete in the talent space, especially since they're often sharing a talent pool with more well-known businesses. So beyond all complexities, the number one thing that I've always found the most challenging about being in a startup world is that there really is an abundance of things to do and countless opinions on what's really going to move the needle. So as a result, it's no surprise that SMBs that are able to sustain that long-term success are generally able to do so because they find focus. They're able to cut through the noise and really hone in on the one or two things that they could be doing really well to maximize their business impact. And based on our experience, we really believe that the number one thing that you can be doing to improve the likelihood of your business success is to focus on your people and your workplace culture. We've found through decades of research that when you intentionally focus on creating a great workplace with a high-trust culture, it's a huge business win that affects many different parts of your organization. So let's dive into that a bit more. When we talk about workplace culture, many people immediately relegate this to the HR function. And since, many small businesses don't have HR, they don't see this as being applicable in their world. Well, we really see things differently at Great Place to Work because the numbers prove that this is about much more than HR. And it's really also a very effective business strategy. In fact, last year for our SMB Best Workplaces list, we surveyed all of our Great Place to Work certified companies and asked them which business metrics have been positively impacted by their focus on culture. These are the top 5 results, with about 70% or more saying that each of these business metrics was in fact impacted. So when we dive a bit deeper into some of those metrics, you know, when we compared SMB winners of our best workplaces list from last year to the non-winners, we saw really dramatic differences in the average revenue growth. Winning workplaces were found to be 26% more likely to experience above average revenue growth. And to further drive home this point, other studies show that winning workplaces actually bring in 3 times more revenue than non-winning workplaces. Our research has also shown that over multiple years, that creating a high-trust culture actually boils down to better staff retention as well. You can see here that for companies that have made our 100 Best Companies to Work For list, voluntary turnover is about 50% lower across all industries. And when we looked at this more specifically for last year's SMB list, we found an even bigger difference. The best SMB workplaces had an average of 12% voluntary turnover, where non-winners had a 27% non-voluntary turnover. So, you know, in an SMB environment where your A players are more critical than ever to you achieving your revenue targets and key milestones, you know, why leave the likelihood of retaining that talent to chance? When it comes to innovation, you know, something that's really critical for SMBs that are trying to move quickly and get ahead in a competitive environment, we've also found that a high-trust culture leads to a 17-fold increase in behaviors that lead to innovation. Employees at winning workplaces share that they feel valued by management and comfortable taking risks. They know that their opinions are heard and valued. And most importantly, they share a sense of pride and camaraderie in their workplace. And as a last point, you know, focusing on your culture, making sure your employees are having a great experience actually supports your long-term marketing strategy as well, especially as we see, you know, a trend like now more than ever in customers really choosing companies because of their values. To that point, our research shows that when your workers are in a high-trust environment, they're much more likely to tell friends, family, and potential customers about their company. In fact, we found that when employees experience a great place to work, they're 11 times more likely to talk positively with people about the place that they work. And when you think about the trend in customer obsession and the success that businesses have had when focusing on their overall customer experience, you know, I'd really be interested in seeing how many of these businesses are actually really people obsessed, you know, first focusing on their people, who in turn then focus on their customers. So Teresa, I think we may have the topic for our next webinar, looking into that a bit more. But in the meantime, I'd like to pass the mic over to Mai and let her talk a bit about OneLogin's culture story, how they became a best small workplace, and the impact that they've seen from their focus on culture, especially as they went through a period of very quick growth. So with that, I will pass the controls over to you, Mai.
Great. I'm super excited to be here with everybody, and you know, it's been a partnership between OneLogin and Great Place to Work, so I'm happy to be here, although I can tell you this is my first webinar. It's being recorded, and so I'm a little nervous, so bear with me. I'd love to take you through our journey and kind of explain our own cultural investments and how they've paid off. So let me see if I can control the screen. Awesome. So I think that works. So I just put 3 bullet points out there of sort of what became a forcing function for OneLogin and how we actually engaged employees to focus on culture. And then finally, some of the ROI from all of this, what I call high effort work. So a little background on OneLogin, and maybe before I start, I'll send a shout out to all of you leaders who I know in small businesses we wear many different hats. So kudos to all of you for driving as many initiatives as you do. I know that it feels lonely sometimes, but just realize that employees really do feel the impact of your work. So a little bit about OneLogin. We are a technology company based in San Francisco. We have 3 global offices, one in Mexico, one in London, and one in Germany. We are about 200 employees, and our biggest product is our single sign-on technology. So it allows employees to be more efficient and simplifies the world of work so that when you come into work, you sign in one time and it unleashes all of the apps that you use every day. So that's what we're most known for, but we have other product features that have since launched since our inception 7 years ago, and we have some really amazing clients like Pinterest and the unicorn companies out here, especially in Silicon Valley, who believe in efficiency and speed for their employees. And there's a lag here, so bear with me. Is the screen moving for you yet?
It looks like it's still on your slide, Mai. I'm going to advance it to the next one.
Oh.
Can you see that there?
Awesome. Yes, I can. So I might need your help, Ashley or Teresa, if you can help me, but I'll just keep going. So this is a snapshot of our team, and most teams that I've worked with in small and medium-sized businesses usually run lean and mean, especially on the HR side. So I have 3 people on the recruiting side and 2 folks on the HR side. And the next slide should show sort of where we spend our time. So we equally try to divide our time into some of the more major projects that go across the company. So this is the macro level detail of where we spend our time. Culture is one of those categories, and it was a deliberate focus for our HR team because I wanted all of us to be involved in it. So as I said, I know in small businesses especially, you wear many different hats, and this is just a simple allocation of where we spend our time. I think the next slide is about sort of why we started this journey. And this is a graph which shows the number of hires that we had. So you can see in 2015, we hired 160 people. And for us, we were a company of about 80 or 90 people at that time in 2014. And so we mushroomed our employee population. You know, this is coming off the heels of raising another round of funding, and so we were in hyper-growth mode, and that meant that we wanted to develop more product features and just generally hire people so that they could help us in our roadmap. So you can see that with 160 new hires, that's when a light bulb went into my mind. And, you know, for me, I was also hired in the summer of 2015. So when I came on board, I was a new person trying to lead the people team. And I thought, wow, we have a lot of long-tenured employees who understand the inside references to why the conference rooms are named the way they are. Or, hey, you know, somebody really likes bacon, so the joke is that they bring bacon gum into the office every day for everybody. So all of those little inside jokes, the newer folks didn't understand the context of them. And so as I was new and as I was seeing all of this new talent, it hit me that, you know what, I have to find a way to bridge these 2 groups of folks. And some of it is naturally through the projects that everybody works on cross-departmentally, but other times it should be more social and more focused. And what I was worried about was sort of the cultural dilution of who we were as a company. And so from 2015, after we hired all those folks, for 2016, these are 3 things that we did. We said, you know what, we took a hard look at who we wanted to be and who we really were now that we were 200 people strong. One of the first things we did was we rebranded ourselves. So we came up with a new logo as well as sort of new branding for everything that we did. And that was a huge task because we were trying to make sure that everybody believed and felt the same thing when they saw and were proud of the things that we've produced. And the little side note is that that little one symbol, the black with the little one in it, we use Apple computers here, and so that one is a sticker, and we stick it on the Apple laptop so that when you open up your laptop, it lights up, and so the one actually lights up, and that is something that is really small, but people really enjoy opening up their laptops just to see that. It's like a dance show, so to speak. We also then took a look at the infrastructure. So at the time, we did not have the processes or the infrastructure to really be a 200-person company. You know, we were no longer the 100-person garage startup. We actually had global offices, had bigger teams, and communication became a little bit harder. And so we looked at our processes and said, you know what do we need to do to make sure everybody knows what's happening across the company? And, you know, it was the small things like rebuilding our travel policy because in the past we didn't have one. So people would fly business class to see our clients. And we said, you know what, now's the time that we need to buckle down and we need to spend our money wisely. So the travel policy says, hey, spend your money as if, or spend our money as if it was your money. And so that's a simple example of some of those small things that we had to do now that we were a growing company. And then the biggest effort was around visiting our core values and our culture, really talking to employees about what they enjoyed about OneLogin and sort of what were the traits used to describe our culture. So that was an 8-month project that really involved employees of just, you know, one-on-ones, survey data, as well as just like having focus groups about, hey, talk to us about culture. What does it mean to you? From there, we bubbled up all of the language and all of the information to our executive team. And then sort of the final touch on this was that our CEO, we really needed buy-in from our CEO. And so we gave him all of this information, and I really worked with him to make sure that these 6 core values resonated with him. And so these are sort of at 2016, this was the time that we revisited everything, and it really created a common language for us. And we tried to integrate all of these core values into what we do every day. So our interview process has a cultural interview to it. Our performance reviews, we have a 360 review process for our managers, and they get sort of graded on how well they live these values. So we tried to embed values into everything that we do. And one of the things that I think creatively worked for us is that we worked with our marketing team to create these emojis. So these emojis live in our Slack channels, they live in our emails, they live in different places so that people can really just see them. And in this day and age, these small emojis actually do a lot to build our cohesive team. And Great Place to Work just happens to be one of our core values. And what you're looking at is an ugly snapshot, but it's a snapshot of some of the goals that we put in place as an HR team. What was on our roadmap, what was important to us to accomplish during that year of hypergrowth. And creating a great workplace was one of them. And so this was a specific goal that we had, and it sort of ties into the, you know, 15% of time I want our team focused on culture. So this is, it's owned by HR, but I can tell you, and I'll have slides later on, but I can tell you that culture is not a single journey. It is that you're going to need ambassadors, you're going to need the buy-in of leadership, and I'll talk to you about sort of how you get there and what you can do, because this is not work that your HR team can do alone. So let's see. Ties into sort of what I'm going to show you in this next set of slides. This is a picture of our executive team from a 2015 offsite that we did, where this was the first start of us really taking the culture journey together of, you know, speaking about what really mattered to them and who we wanted to be and our identity at the time. So I show you this as a way to say that you need executive level buy-in. You can't do this alone. And it's a lot easier when you find even one or two people at the executive level that can help you be an ambassador and really talk about why this is important. And to Ashley's earlier points, you know, it does, by investing in culture, it does have business impact. And for OneLogin, I'll show you some slides later on about how that affected our business results as well as how that affected just employee morale. And I think this next slide will show you, this is a picture of an offsite that we did where this was not created by HR. This was somebody who really wanted to give back to the community. So they took a morning off to serve underprivileged folks in the community. And, you know, it's really neat to see the smiles on their faces and just the camaraderie. I think, for me, I can definitely feel it, but we didn't tell them to wear their OneLogin shirts. They just did it naturally. And so these are small moments where I encourage you to seek the volunteers in your employee base that want to do these things, because in the end, they all want to build a place that they can be proud of. I'm finding a lot of people coming to me to say, hey, can I organize this? Or, hey, can we fundraise for that? And being a small business, we can't always fund these causes, but we can definitely donate our time. And so I'm happy when other people take the reins on building our culture, because that's really, it's really a joint effort. And then finally, just as a small token, we celebrated our birthday back in October, and this is just a picture of our CEO slicing the cake. And even that was a small moment, because usually we have, you know, an HR team that's really nurturing and will, you know, serve others and make sure that everybody, like, make sure the cake is cut in a way so that we have enough for everybody. But this was just Thomas Peterson, our CEO, just saying, you know what, yeah, well, I'd love to cut the first slice and, like, be of service to everybody else. So when we talk about servant leadership, Thomas is a very good role model. And that role modeling cascades down through the rest of the organization, so that when your executive team members can really live one of the core values, what I start to see is that other people in the organization mimic the behavior. So I encourage you to focus on really aligning those core values as a team and finding people to role model those behaviors you want to see. Really, in the end, that's what culture means to us at OneLogin. It's sort of the way we behave together as a team. One of the other things that we really, and as a team, we really dig deep on the data. And I'm a data geek. I love pivot tables, and this is a simple snapshot of what the scores were from our quarterly pulse results. So if you don't already have a way to survey your employees, I really encourage you to do it. We launch a survey every quarter which asks questions around leadership, management, trust, you know, I'm happy here, and they score us on a scale of 1 to 10 on all of those dimensions, so 1 being not so good and 10 being awesome. And we just allow employees anonymously to sort of grade the organization. And in each quarterly pulse survey, we ask 3 questions. First question is sort of, we ask open-ended questions at the end. The first question is, what are we doing well at OneLogin? The second question is, what do we need to focus on? And the third question is, what else is on your mind? And I love it, because every quarter when we release this survey, what comes back is over 200 lines of data from our own employees telling us, hey, you're good at this, this, and this. I'd love to see you focus on that, that, and that. And by the way, I just wanted to say this out loud. And because it's an anonymous channel, it's really just very meaningful and very impactful to see the work of culture, for instance, because there are a lot of comments about culture in our surveys. So what you're looking at here is by department, they are scoring sort of how we're doing as a company, and then ESAT is measured by, you know, I'm happy working at OneLogin and I would recommend it as a great place to work. So the benchmark for companies our size in our space is about 69, and our ESAT score is at 82. So my understanding is that most companies are happy with high 60s, 70 as the scores, and if you look across our different departments, we are scoring on average in the 80s. And so I think that employees generally really want to help build a great organization, and they want to feel part of it. I think part of the lure of working in some of these technology startup companies is that you get equity. And when you get equity, you get ownership in the company, and this ownership extends to the cultural component. It's not just about coming in and doing your daily job. It's actually about contributing to making it a great workplace. So after all of this high effort work, because it does take a lot of people to maintain this and sustain it, like I think for the most part, we don't talk about culture every day. Like I said, we try to embed it in the things that we do or in the processes that we roll out. I think, the example of our travel policy is a very simple outline of we don't tell everybody here, you have to follow these 15 rules. We actually just say, spend the money as if it's your own. And that's an example of how we've aligned, that to being a great place to work, because we trust that our employees, when they need to travel, they're going to find the most economical way or the most efficient way to get to our client or to get to our meeting. And that trust allows them to feel like they're part of our organization, and they won't take advantage of it. They will actually make sure that they're being a great corporate citizen. So the last section of my story is around the return on investment of all of our cultural work. So this is a snapshot of our scores from the Great Place to Work survey. So when you nominate your company to be a great place to work, you'll complete a series of essay questions around, why you deserve this accolade and sort of what is it that makes your workplace unique. What they also do is they survey your employees, so that it's a pretty extensive survey. It goes out to all of your employees, and Great Place to Work then aggregates all your data, and they can work with you to really dig deep and understand it. This is a snapshot from our own dashboard of OneLogin survey results from last year, and you can see that these are scoring even higher than our internal pulse results. And, this is one of those moments where I'm actually proud to be on the people team in this company, because it is really hard work sometimes, and amidst everything that we have to do, it's nice to see scores in the 90s. And I do not take credit for all of this, but we definitely are transparent, and we show these results. We show our pulse results every quarter, and we definitely kind of celebrated these results as a company, because it really does speak volumes about how proud people are to work in this company. And I just happen to lead our HR and recruiting teams here, so I get the benefit of kind of getting access to this information and sharing it. So I will say that one of the key components that I found really worked is that we had our executives, in the 220 lines of data that we get each quarter from the pulse surveys, I actually have them read through the results. I share with them everything that's being said, so that they can have an understanding of the real pulse of this company. And to me, that is really dedication from our executive team, that they really do want to know what's on the minds of our employees. And the final slide is the best one, and it shows sort of after our investments in kind of being deliberate about culture, this is what we earned for the past 2 years. We've been celebrating, and we have trophies displayed in our front area of some of the accolades that we've received. And I can tell you that the Fortune list that Great Place to Work, the Great Place to Work Institute partners with, is one of the most coveted and esteemed lists to get on. So I know that we made it for 2016, and then we made it in the Bay Area for 2017. What Michael Bush, the CEO of Great Workplace, tells me is that it's going to be very hard to maintain a position. The list is getting harder. There's like very talented companies, and so my goal for 2017 is to continue to make it on the small and medium companies list. So I'm super excited to show you these trophies, and I will tell you that internally, with our high morale, it really does permeate into our customer base. Like when you treat your employees well, they will treat your customers well. And GPTW, by the way, stands for Great Place to Work. It has made it easier for us to attract and retain employees during what's a very competitive landscape. We're all going after the same talent, and we're here in Silicon Valley, where there are some really awesome companies just across the street from us. And so by showing our ROI on the cultural investments and by being proud of the place where we've all worked and where we're all building, it just allows us and our recruiting teams to be even more focused on building a great place to work. So that is the journey that we've been on, and it's I really do. I encourage you not to do it alone. It's very hard to do alone. So, you have ambassadors within your teams and within your company that really want to do this. And so I encourage you to get out there and start talking to them, because believe me, they have a lot to tell you.
Thanks so much for sharing your story, Mai. This is it's really incredible to hear, not only the passion that you have for the culture work that you've done, but also just to see really how that permeated within your organization, and then the amazing achievements and accolades that you've earned as a result. So hats off to you guys for sure for such an incredible work that you've done here. So with that, I know we kind of wanted to open it up to some questions specifically for Mai about her journey. So feel free to start putting those questions into the chat box, and we'll kind of answer some as we go along. For the questions that we're unable to answer in this live session, responses after the webinar. So just to start, were there any specific programs or practices that you changed as a part of going through and evaluating your culture? So it sounds like it did have some kind of impact on the way that, or on the travel policy, but was there anything else, beyond that you saw as being a significant change as a result?
Yeah, quite honestly, in all of the cultural conversations that we were having, I was working side by side with Thomas Peterson, our CEO, who was really open to hearing and understanding how to be more effective as a CEO who is concerned about culture. And so one of the things that we decided to do was to tie his own variable bonus into how we scored in our quarterly pulse results, because those pulse results, because there's a score to them, it's actually very easy for Thomas to measure himself against how he thinks he's doing. And so his bonus in 2016 was tied to our pulse results, and that was a huge effort that he was open to, and that meant for me, I just had to find a way to kind of work with him to be accepting of it and to not be afraid of it, because the more work that he does to set the tone around culture, the more it moves the needle internally for the rest of the organization. So having a CEO who is open and sort of vulnerable to that has been sort of like a realization that tone does really start at the top. And so sometimes when you're working with your own CEO, it can be helpful to kind of guide him through in terms of some of the ROI on investing in culture. So I think that was probably the biggest thing that we did. And I will say, secondly, that when you're asking employees for their feedback, they really want to know what you're going to do with it. It isn't just about taking surveys and just kind of having all of the responses go into a black hole. I think that the more transparent you can be about things, the better it is. So every quarter, when the pulse results are finalized, we actually publish them. We talk about them at the town hall, and we find the themes around what's happening or what's on people's minds, so that our employees then feel that, you know what, their voices are being heard, and we actually have action plans that are coming out of some of the issues that they're sharing with us. And, you know, quite honestly, some of the issues are positive. Like they say things like, you need to put more fire or more gasoline on this effort. Like you need to do more, and let's do more. I'm willing to help. And so I think that the data points have been both positive and sort of areas that we need to focus on. And I think that's, I don't know, like I said, I'm a data geek at heart. And so having the voices of our employees shared and building action steps against them has been very helpful for the entire company.
That's really impressive, Mai, especially your leader, you know, committing to be, you know, accountable to creating and facilitating that culture by, you know, tying his bonus to that. I know that's a point that really kind of took me back when I heard that. So hats off to you guys. So kind of a related question. What was and I actually, you know, not sure that you totally experienced this, but I'm sure you did somewhat. What was the hardest part of combining the culture of the old guard and the new employees in 2015? How did you overcome stubbornness from the old guard?
I think that was really hard, quite frankly. I don't know if there's like a magic bullet or like secret sauce that we had. But what I found super helpful is that sometimes you just need to, you know, take the teams together out to lunch. Or when we did our focus groups, we were very thoughtful and intentional about making sure that we had folks from, you know, what you call the old guard, sitting with folks from the new guard, because they have different perspectives. And once their perspectives are shared, really the common theme throughout what they say is that, hey, we just want to build a great workplace. So yeah, bring in your best practices or share your thoughts from the companies where you've come from, and we'll share with you some of the history and the context around, you know, the bacon jokes or the conference room jokes. And so by merging the two as often as you can, I found it really helpful. And I think maybe transparency is the hardest part. And it's because it becomes harder to communicate across the company when you get bigger. And so the more transparent you can be with teams or within departments or across departments, the easier it is to kind of break some of that ice and some of the barriers. But I found that the more I talked and the more I communicated, the easier it was for everybody else to open up too.
Right. I'm going to take just a couple more questions before we kind of move on to the next section. So what social networking tools do you use at OneLogin, i.e. Yammer, Slack, etc.?
Oh gosh, we use a lot. Each department has their own, but I can tell you across the company, we use Slack. We use what is called Workplace at Facebook. It's a new tool invented by Facebook for workplaces, so that you can share social media feeds, you can kind of post photos, you can, you know, just talk about things at work or take those snapshots during the day. We use Namely as our HR system, which also has a feed, a social media feed, where there's birthdays in there, there's anniversaries in there. So we have a lot of different things, including email, of course. What I'm finding is that in today's world, where it's fast-paced and where everybody's doing a lot of things, attention spans are waning a little bit. So we use Slack, and Slack is a messaging tool. And Slack has really given us the ability to just post whatever we need to in the moment. And we have different channels devoted to different topics, but that is usually what we're using internally.
All right. And we'll go ahead and take one last question. So how do you avoid employee rater fatigue when you have quarterly surveys and external surveys?
So quite honestly, we have town hall meetings each month where we talk about what's happening in the company, and it's a way for Thomas and members of the executive team and then some employees to just get up in front of our audience and talk about what projects are happening. And within those town halls, we always devote some time to saying, hey, don't forget, take your quarterly pulse surveys. It's coming out, whatever, in 2 weeks. And then we also talk about how sometimes we'll engage outside companies to help us really understand our culture. So don't be surprised if you get a survey request or a link from Great Place to Work, or don't be surprised if you get it from this other company because we're working with another company to help us. And so employees, when they have the context around why we're polling them so often, they actually don't mind it. And like I said, they're happy to help build a great workplace, and they're definitely happy to contribute their thoughts and sentiments around what will make it better.
Awesome. Thanks again so much, Mai. With that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this section. Again, I know there were several questions that were left unanswered, so we will follow up with Mai and get those questions answered for you guys after the webinar. But for this next portion, for those of you specifically that are interested in learning more about Great Place to Work certification and how to get started on this culture journey, feel free to stay on the line, and we'll take you through the certification process and what it entails. But for everyone else who's dropping off, thank you so much for joining us today. And as Teresa mentioned, we will be following up with the recording of the webinar and the slides later this week. All right, so with that, I'll go ahead and kind of move into the next portion of our presentation. So, I think fundamentally most folks that I talk to agree that good culture is important, but they don't really know what a good culture is and how that compares to the culture that they have today. We often find that new clients come to us because they need a way to actually quantify their culture and turn that, squishy concept into something that's actually tangible and actionable. Most of the time they have a good hunch that there's something special about their workplace, and they want to figure out a way to share that with the world. It's easy to say that you have a great culture, but being able to actually quantify that and back that up with measurable data and third-party validation allows you to really prove, to prove it, and it provides a competitive advantage. So, our certification program does just that for you. It's allowing you to turn something that can be quite subjective and qualitative today into something that you can actually set goals around and measure. We also provide you with the resources to share your results and to use this as your advantage in your marketing and recruiting efforts. So through certification, you're able to actually quantify your employees' perceptions on the credibility of your leadership, the sense of respect that they feel they're given from leadership, their overall sense of fairness within the workplace, the pride that they have in the work that they do, and the camaraderie that they share with the team. So in addition to measuring, the 5 areas listed above, we also provide you with benchmarks for how your scores compare to other SMBs. So not only can you quantify, your own culture, but now you can also determine if what you're experiencing is the norm or the exception. So certification is a simple 5-step process. We start by surveying your employees through our research-backed Trust Index survey. It's a 54-statement survey that we send to your full team, and it measures the consistency among your employees' experiences. Next, you'll complete a culture brief, and so this is where you really provide us with details about your company's programs and practices and overall what makes your company unique and special. Then we analyze those results, of both the trust index and the culture brief. And if we find that 7 out of 10 of your employees experience consistently a great workplace, you'll then meet the criteria to be certified as a great place to work. So to complete that certification, we'll provide you with an online review of your performance, like the snapshot that Mai showed earlier. And this can be shared, on your social channels and your recruiting efforts and really any other places where you'd benefit from highlighting your great workplace culture. You'll also receive some decals that you can display proudly in your office or in your storefront, and you'll have the ability to purchase other materials as well to promote your certification status. So this badge that you see here is something that you'll actually be able to use for an entire year in your marketing efforts on your website and so forth. And then finally, certification is really the pathway to our best workplaces list. So as a certified great place to work, you'll be considered for all of the best workplaces list that we produce while your certification is valid. In total, the certification process generally takes about 8 hours, but it's really going to provide critical data that you'll find yourself using throughout the year. So the level of depth in reporting that you'll receive is dependent on the package that you choose. Our base level package is really perfect if you're interested in just being considered for the best workplaces list and you're looking for kind of a high level summary of your results and strengths and opportunities without the granularity of really being able to see how you scored on each specific trust index statement. However, if you're looking for more data and trust index results by statement, as well as detailed insights into all the comments that are left by your employees, you'll want to select an upgraded package. So in the example above, you can see statements where you scored the highest, along with benchmarks for how this compares to the best workplaces. And similarly, here's an example of growth opportunities along with comparisons to the best. So not only are you able to see what you're doing well, but you'll also have really clear insights into the specific areas that need improvement. So for deeper analysis, you'll want to choose our Analyze package, which features more granular people insights and additional best companies benchmarks, learnings, and best practices. So in this example, we're able to measure the actual intent of retention by tenure, making it easy to see how likely employees are to stay, to stay with your company, depending on their level within the organization. So think about how powerful this information can be when choosing really where to focus your culture efforts. And finally, we're also able to measure the levels of innovation within your organization, allowing you to see how connected your employees are to your mission and their overall inspiration within their own roles. So this is going to help you to see how well you're communicating your vision and whether or not your employees are fully on board with your direction. So finally, as I mentioned previously, once you're certified, we consider you for all of our best workplaces lists that we produce during the year in which you're certified. All of the lists are published with our publishing partner, Fortune, with the exception of our newest list, the Companies That Care list, which is one that we're publishing with People magazine. So that one actually came out as a print article in the first week of April edition in People magazine, and it got a tremendous amount of exposure. This is one that we actually are opening up to SMB companies in the coming year. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and open it up again to questions for me specifically. If you have any questions about certification and how to get started in that process. And for that, I'm going to ask Teresa for your help in kind of fielding some of those questions.
Sure. So I will jump in and, yeah, feel free to submit some more questions, guys, and we'll try and get those answered. And if we don't have time, again, just feel free to respond to the email we'll be sending out with the full recording and slide deck, and I'll help you get those answered afterwards as well. So, Ashley, the first question we have here is, when do I need to be certified by in order to be considered for your upcoming small and medium business list?
So if you're interested in actually being considered for the SMB list, you need to complete certification by July 12th. That list is going to be published in October. And certification does, like we said, it takes about 8 hours of time. But, considering that you need to keep your survey open for about 2 weeks while you're collecting feedback from your employees, we'd recommend that you give yourself, 4 weeks to really complete the process end to end. So if you are interested in being considered for that list, I would recommend, getting signed up for certification in the next week or so.
Great. We have a couple questions on pricing. So how much does certification cost?
So for our base level package, just the entry level, which kind of gives you the high level results and also allows you to be considered for the list, that starts at $9.95. And then the packages increase from there, again, depending on the level of insights that you're really looking to get from the data.
Perfect. And does Great Place to Work offer any discounts for small and medium businesses?
Yes. So actually, right now, we are offering a promotion for SMBs that are interested in being considered for our upcoming SMB list. So we'll follow up with a promo code, but it's just to shout it out to you guys, it's SMB 2017, and that'll give you 20% off of all certification packages. So I think that brings the entry-level price to about $7.95 for base level certification.
Perfect. There's a question here about the difference between a culture audit and culture brief and asking whether they would have to complete a culture audit for the small and medium workplaces list.
No, so for those of you who are, familiar with Great Place to Work and have interfaced with us in the past, we've made some changes to make the certification process much easier to go through, especially for SMBs. So you do not have to complete a full culture audit. We do now instead what we call a culture brief, which takes roughly about 3 hours to complete, but it's about a quarter of the amount of information that you submitted in the past. So we're really looking to streamline this process and make it much easier for SMBs. If, by chance you're lucky enough to be considered for the people list, we may request some additional information from you, but for the base level certification process, the culture brief is all that you'll be required to submit.
Perfect. So we're about at time here. Again, if you have any other questions, feel free to send those along. Ashley and Mai, thank you both for presenting today. I hope everyone attending found this webinar really useful, and please also take a minute or two of your time afterwards to send us a quick survey and just let us know if the webinar was helpful and went well for you. So with that, everyone, I hope you have a great day, and Ashley and Mai, thanks again.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.